Hello, Mr. McLean. My name is Viriyawan Suria, and today I would like to present my solution to the GP problem or research topic that was raised by my group and or team for the global perspectives and research practical test. So the group research question was the problem of Indonesia's ever-changing curriculum. This was raised because of the fact that as students we observe that and experience firsthand the changes in curriculum that the government implements and the adaptation towards implementing a new curriculum was not easy, especially to us as well, because we were previously focused on academic and purely systemic education in the sense that all we focused about was to learn, to have quizzes, to do well in tests, and that's it. And with the new initiatives, we are basically forced and encouraged to have a much more open discussions with many more projects alongside the already handful amount of tasks and assignments as well as tests that we have. And so the individual research question or statement that I have is that the solution of Indonesia's curriculum is Ministry reformation. Why is that? Because the Ministry of Education is the root of the curriculum's nightmare. Why do I think that way? How's the current system like anyway? So it is to be said that Indonesia has made significant improvement in expanding their access to education over the past few decades. More and more students in rural and local communities enroll in schools, as seen with the increased enrollment rates. And the gender parity has also improved, but the challenges still persist in developing the quality of education. So the quantity of students joining education is actively in pursuit of education increases, but the quality of education that they get is not yet standardized. And according to the World Bank, student learning levels remain relatively low, with many students not meeting the national learning targets. This is further enhanced by the various initiatives to address the issue, but none of them hitting the right spot. For instance, the Mereka Belajar initiative aims to enhance learning, but the effectivity of it says otherwise. So why are there constant changes in curriculum? Well, there are six primary reasons for that. The first one is ministerial turnover and politically driven curriculum changes. Since Indonesia's education ministry leadership often changes with presidential terms, and ministers are typically appointed based on political alliances of the president in power or popular credentials, not educational expertise. For example, Juana Makarim introduced several innovative reforms like the Curriculum Merdeka. His appointment raised questions about his lack of experience in pedagogy and academics itself because he had a major in business and economics instead of education. So his appointment and his tech-oriented policies disrupted the existing systems, and so it results in a major overhaul of curriculum structure with little national standardization or continuity. And not to mention, he also made decisions that are quote unquote commercializing the education system. So that also caused a bit of a chaos. And there's also no consistent national framework. Each new curriculum that we have, for example, the curriculum in 2004, KBK 24, 2004, KTSP 2006, the K13, and Curriculum Merdeka, it really defines how or what should be taught and how. So it leads to misalignment between schools, regions, and academic levels. And without a strong consensus-based national education, or national philosophy in education, the reforms, it becomes ad hoc and it's personalized to a minister's vision. And so it lacks the long-term evaluation. Not to mention, their changes in curriculum is often reactionary reforms, since curricular changes often occur in response to a crisis or global ranking issues such as poor PISA scores, instead of being grounded in consistent national data and evidence-based research. And this is also further enhanced by the lack of feedback. Teachers are rarely consulted during development. And so, because of it, many teachers are often times lack training and or resources when the curricula or when a new curricula is released. Therefore, it results in varying interpretations between different teachers in different schools and the teaching quality across schools because there was this trend, especially in Curriculum Merdeka, where since the name of the curriculum is Curriculum Merdeka, the teachers basically did not teach anything and were basically just giving freedom to the kids. And definitely that was a very bad interpretation, but this highlights the issue. Then there's also decentralization without accountability, since Indonesia practices partial decentralization, where local governments and schools can basically adopt curricula to local context, but there is little to no national enforced set minimum competencies, and so it reinforces the inequality and systemic inconsistency because of the fact that rural and remote schools may receive less support. And finally, the bureaucratic inefficiency within the ministry itself also suffers, the ministry as a whole suffers from fragmented internal coordination. So there is weak institutional framework. And so there are often implementational plans that differ from or between directorates. For example, the education or the Ministry of Education that is responsible for higher education with the early childhood. And so this makes national evaluations um, that are often published too late to inform the active teaching policies. And so the government's role, again, the in Indonesia, the appointment of the Minister of Education is a political decision. It's often influenced by factors beyond educational expertise, and this is in stark contrast with countries such as Finland and Singapore, where educational leadership positions are typically filled based on merit and professional qualifications. And the lack of a meritocratic approach in appointing educational leaders in Indonesia can lead to inconsistent policies, as seen, and hinder the long-term educational planning, which is quite ironic because of the fact that Indonesia wants to be just like Finland and actually, um, and not just Finland, but the Nordic countries as a whole, which is where they basically are taking inspiration from for the curriculum merdeka. And so the solutions, what should we do? The very best way to address the challenges in Indonesia's education system would be to, first of all, adopt merit-based appointments. And the fact is that you should appoint educational leaders to ensure that policies are informed by expertise and experience. Not to mention, we should also then teacher professional development to ensure that the uh, teaching quality improves as well, since it enhances the teacher training programs and provides continuous professional development opportunities for the teachers to grow. And it should also increase the bureaucracy efficiency as well as promote the decentralization of education with accountability, uh, ensuring the support and sufficient funds for the schools that are in rural areas. So, in conclusion, we can say that Indonesia's education system is one that is decentralized and in a state of ongoing reform, with significant efforts to modernize the curriculum with initiatives like the Curriculum Merdeka. But the system still faces curriculum instability, unequal inequality, unequal quality, and politicization of key positions in the educational ministry. Thereby, to escape the cycle of free-form failures, the country must prioritize genuine accountability and start reforming their system from the very roots of its institution and by appointing merit-based appointments or meritocratic approach to the educational leaders. And for future suggestions, despite all the offered solution, the writer also suggests the government to not only try implementing the solutions offered, but to also develop a certain and fixed national education philosophy and standards such that they defined the permanent national curriculum framework based on the competencies. So even with variations of curricula and implementation of decentralization, between local regions, the main roots and core foundations of the curriculum will stay the same and shall stay consistent for years to come, regardless of ministerial changes, and would only be changed if it is necessary and is backed up by the key data and evidence that it is flawed. And these are the sources that I used for the research, and that is all for my presentation. Thank you all, and thank you, sir, so very much for listening and sticking to the end of the presentation. If there are any mistakes, whether it is in the presentation or spoken, I am very sorry and deeply apologize. I would improve it next time. Thank you. So